Is there anybody here that was not with us for any of the earlier Gita values and needs a little background on the topic? You do, okay. Anyone else over here? You've all been present. Okay, so you have to pay attention because this is for you. No texting, none of that stuff. For now, shorter version. The Oxford Project is a group of devotees who have connected with the Oxford University Divinity School and have established a division of the Divinity School called Vaishnava Studies, and the Gita values is their work product. In collaboration with some educators in ISKCON, specifically to help make the message of Bhagavad Gita intelligible for different audiences, new audiences, kind of. They came up with, out of the unlimited values, the 6 Gita values. So values have some relationship with spiritual culture, and that relationship is identified in this metaphor of the iceberg of culture. Just like an iceberg has the tip, that's what you can see above the surface of the water, and then parts below the surface of the water. So culture also has behaviors and measurable things that's exemplary of culture, and supporting those behaviors are values of a group of people. They're official statements of this is what our values are, and we live by them. This is what's important to us, or me as an individual, or us as a family, or us as a group of people, or us as an organization, or us as a nation, or whatever it is. Stated values. And below that there's some core assumptions that do not change. Values may change. These certain core things don't change. And the idea overall for culture is to align the 3 things: our deepest held convictions, our values, and what we do, observable things. And so values is the focus, but it's connected to spiritual culture, specific to Krishna consciousness or the Hare Krishna culture. So we're focusing on values. It's not, the values are not an end unto themselves, any more than wisdom is an end unto itself, or knowledge is an end unto itself. And the ones at the top, knowledge and wisdom, are the manifest state of generally where we get stuck is the information side. It takes a while to get the information clear, but then we don't often live according to that information. But persons who are wise, they do because they're wise. It's just an exhibition of their wisdom. And knowledge reference is Bhagavad Gita chapter 13, where Arjuna wants to know from Krishna what's knowledge. And Krishna answers by giving a set of qualities, saying, this is what knowledge is, which is far more than information is. Behavior or character exhibited in various ways, and is part of spiritual culture. So we're interested not just in the information part, we're interested, we're interested in transformation through understanding values and trying to live them. And then there's a challenge. There's, on the left side is where we are, and to the right side is where we want to be, and in between is a big gap between the two. Or what we know, that's the information side, and the information side is over there, and over here is where we are. So, big gap, and closing the gap takes some work, and it's often uncomfortable, going from where we are to what we kind of like conditioned and even attached to where we are, even though we know better. So, it takes some work, and it takes some willingness to undergo some discomfort. That's good. And Gita values is to help us do that. And so part of what we've been doing is some exercises and reflections and so forth to help us go to the transformation stage beyond the information stage. So, Gita value number 3, we discussed Samadarshana, seeing the soul within ourselves and others and conducting ourselves accordingly. Then the interpersonal dimension of non-violence, or not just not harming others, but acting in a way that's beneficial for others, which is non-violence, because suffering is due to ignorance, and interacting with others where we're carrying some light and helping to bring light to that place of darkness. Forgetfulness of who we really are is an essential feature of nonviolence. And now comes humility. One could argue very easily, this should be number 1. Because how are you going to understand anything, who you are and how to be non-violent, non-humble? Or if you're proud, it destroys everything. One could make that argument. And in fact, those of you that are familiar with Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, texts 8 through 12, humility and pridelessness are the first 2 in the list of items of knowledge. And amanina from Shikshastika number 3. That's way up there. Humility, more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, is how Prabhupada has translated it. Amanitam. That's the negative, devoid of false prestige. Humble is the positive. So, from a dictionary definition, humility means the state of being humble. The word humility has its origin in Latin word, humilus, which means low. So, lower than the blade of grass. And in the Chinese wisdom, they have this proverb, be like the bamboo, the higher you grow, the deeper your bow. And there's different ways of saying the same thing. A bountiful tree has laden fruits, and so the branches are bowing down. Not thinking, hey, I'm better than the tree next to me because I got so many fruits. But the one who is bestowed with many assets is very humble. Just a little sharing. The first time I made this presentation, it was in Kunming, and the place where we were conducting this gathering was in like a yoga studio type of space. And so when we went outside, directly across the street was a building, a 2-story building, And in the second story was 6-foot tall bamboo. Like the whole roof of bamboo. And I guess, I asked some questions about it because my understanding, there's this nice story about grass and bamboo. And grass grows quickly and bamboo takes years, and then finally it grows quickly because it has to have a root structure. Because when the wind comes, you have to have a strong root structure because the bamboo is going to, green bamboo will bow or move with the wind. So life brings its winds, and that's okay. If you're humble, like the bamboo, you have root structure, or ballast, or a core sense of humility, so you can yield or bow to any direction. Good fortune, ill fortune. If you have genuine humility. So, these 6-foot tall species, those on the rooftop, they didn't have a big root structure. This kind of special species. But it also bows down. But it's not tall. It's only 6 feet. It's just an example. But Chinese wisdom is similar to Vedic Bhagavad Gita wisdom. Be humble. And the more you become proficient at something, the person who's wise knows to bow down. And there it is, Confucius saying, humility is the solid foundation of all virtues. Gita value number 1. So what is it? And we'll start with saying what it isn't. Good definition is both exclusive and inclusive. So, is it? The answer is no. Simply the absence of self-esteem. So this is like kind of a new age terminology. Self-esteem. Show your strength, show your prowess, show your stuff. That's self-esteem. And people that are humble, they just have low self-esteem. They don't know how to be macho and show it there because they have low self-esteem. But that's not so. That's the mode of ignorance. It's part of the negative emotion thing, or depression thing. I'm worthless. I'm a failure. I'm no good. No matter how well I do in school, my parents always told me, "You can do better. What's wrong with you? Everyone's doing better than you." And I got that kind of thing. I've heard that from some people that they're still hurting from that, and they're still carrying the "I'm no good," low self-esteem thing. I'm bad. I'm a failure. So that's not what humility is. Some people think that humility is after labeling somebody, you're da-da-da-da. You're not very good. I'll just won't say anything. I'll just be very humble and tolerate the fact that you carry this label with you, and I'll just remain silent, quiet, and tolerate your existence. That's not what humility is. Some people, probably Donald Trump, thinks that persons that they're just blind followers, those people that are humble, they got a hole inside of them, and And so they just follow this one and follow that one. And so that's not what humility is. Humility takes, like Prabhupada explains, in order to be a devotee, you have to be more thoughtful than persons who aren't devotees. Because it's like going upstream. The river is going swiftly downstream, especially in Kali Yuga, more and more so. And to be a devotee, you have to be very clear and discriminating and purposeful in doing what you do, and living your life the way that you live your life. And when people try to influence you this way, that way, you smile. You don't like get angry or compliant with this way, that way, because I want to be accepted and want to be, etc., etc. It takes some courage and strength and clarity and conviction and intelligence to move on the path of devotion. So that's not what humility means. Here's what humility means. Humility in Gita, this is taken directly, I think, from the Oxford Project folks. Humility in the Gita is a virtue which is seen in behavior, that's the tip of the iceberg part, but which rests on understanding and character, that's the value part. It rests on understanding, so it rests on the Samadarshana. I think that's why they put it in the third position, is resting on Samadarshana. And character, which is items of knowledge. So then, when you have knowledge and understanding, you also have character. So, it rests on understanding oneself. That's a big, big start. Most people, they're too busy being successful, or trying to be successful, than trying to understand who they are. Because it's important to be successful. I've heard it. It's important to be successful. And then there's standards of what is successful. We did this little exercise about, that was in Grand Rapids. What is the standard of success in discussion groups? And what's the standard of failure? And if, not having clarity of what real success is, or real happiness is, or reality is, you're bound to enter into this territory of negative emotion, whatever you think is success or failure. I had a really nice experience. One of the times recently in China, I had a fantastic experience. I learned something from a nice lady. Chengdu. You ever hear of that place? I hadn't either. But I was invited to go there. And the person who invited me was one of the teachers of Bhakti Shastri. And their occupation, their income, is their yoga teacher. So because of their character, the yoga teacher, the yoga studio owner, said, hey, can you teach Bhagavad Gita to all the 35 people that are the staff of the yoga studio? In Chinese, of course. And so they had begun studying Bhagavad Gita. I'll tell a little more of the story. So the yoga studio owner came to know that this person has a teacher. So they asked their yoga teacher employee, staff member, to ask their teacher any advice or recommendation for me. So I asked a bunch of questions and I said, be vegetarian. Because I had never met the person, be vegetarian. So then when I visited, there were 3 sessions. The yoga studio owner's married woman, small child, in her late 30s, like that, like very warm person, very qualified person, very intelligent person. You know, we connected very well over those 3 classes without the details of what that was like. And because the connection was what it was, she requested some time when we could just have a one-on-one discussion. So with the Bhakti Shastri teacher, her staff member who was a yoga instructor, and a translator, the 4 of us sat. The discussion began like this. Since I was a little girl, I've had this deep sense of somehow there's a mission in my life, and I want to connect with that mission in my life. And then somebody said, do well in school, and it will help you with whatever it is that you want to become your mission in life. So I did really well in school, was top student in school, and then a little light went on and said, that's not my mission in life. So then another person said, if you're going to meet your mission in life, you've got to have money. So make a lot of money. You're smart, make a lot of money. So I got into it, I made a lot of money, got a lot of money, and I realized that's not my mission in life. Some people don't realize that. So somebody said, well, of course, just having money, but you know, be a leader and take people to good places by being a good leader. So I became a leader, this and that and the other thing. And then a little light went on and said, that's not my mission in life, being a leader. And then somebody else said, of course, leaders have to be in service to others, or get into being in service to others. So I've been doing that, and somehow there's something missing. What's next, basically? Where do I go from here? Pause. The door is open. I don't know the person, but you know, some sense of the person. And I said, we're just meeting, so what can I say? But my sense is you're very capable. My sense is you're a teacher, that you like to share what you have with others. It's your nature. But something that you don't have is you don't know who you are. So that's not the conclusion, but the next step is deep down inside, come to the understanding of who are you really. Not, you know, this set of clothes, that set of clothes, this cosmetic, that cosmetic, but deep inside, who are you? And over here is your staff member that's a Bhagavad Gita instructor. Study Bhagavad Gita with her. And you'll find the answer to who are you in Bhagavad Gita. And you're studying, you continue to be intelligent and make money and lead people and help people and do all that good stuff. You have to leave that behind to know who you are. But use all those resources in the exploration of who are you. And there's more to come, but start there. So she liked the answer, and she's been working on it while she's still really busy making money and helping people and stuff. There's little communication going on back and forth. But she had at least, from the time of being a little girl, some understanding of wanting to know who she is, not yet getting to the state of who she is, but she's able to hear. Some people can't hear. some people don't even ask the question, so they can then hear an answer to the question. So, some humility, but it's incomplete. Because real humility is resting on understanding who we are, and then acceptance of who we really are. This very same question, this audience here probably knows, our Sambandha Acharya, the Sanatana Goswami, when he first met Lord Chaitanya, that was his question. And his question wasn't even, who am I? It was, what am I? Have you ever noticed that? Kayami is not, who am I? It's, what am I? It's significant. Because we're apart. Who comes after a more mature stage? Start with, what am I? Part of Krishna. And then we have our spiritual identity and our spiritual relationship and our spiritual form and our spiritual rasa and our service in the spiritual world. But that's a more mature stage, because otherwise the who am I is going to be another cosmetic thing. Set of clothes to put on and see how does it fit. Do we feel comfortable with that idea of who we are? It starts with we're living entities meant for service to Krishna. So that's that who am I question. And here comes a little. Supposing you're thinking not in the spiritual conception. So I'm this body, and I'm the mind, and combination of body and mind, and I'm part of something that's much bigger than me. Here's the Vedic picture of something bigger than us. Over here is Ilavatri Varsha. There's Mount Meru, golden mountain that's inverted, bigger at the top and smaller at the bottom. There's an explanation of why it's like that. And over here, there's Ilavatri Varsha on Jambudvip. It's part of our solar system, and there we are, this Earth planet within our solar system. And there's a map of the Earth planet. And over here, there's North America. And in North America, there's the 50 states. Down there's Alaska and Hawaii. And over here is the state of Michigan. And here we are in Detroit. Now, we didn't go any further than that. We're at that house over there. Is that really who we are? I'm part of this bigger thing. Well, it's nice to think of ourselves as part of something that's bigger. But it's not really who we are. And there's this important message of accepting who we are. But humility is grounded in knowing who we are, then accepting who we are. And then from that humility, we can also accept higher teachings. Now, one of the following slide is, the credit goes to Adi Purusha. I don't know if any of you know him, but he's a very accomplished teacher in our Hare Krishna movement. And in the month of April, he was visiting in Potomac, because he has a relationship with Ananda Vrindavan, because he was the teacher at the VIHE, so he came at her invitation to teach. And while he was there, he spent a whole week teaching what you're about to see on acceptance. So this comes from him. When we don't accept an undesired event, it becomes anger. When we accept it, it becomes tolerance. That's a value, Bhagavad Gita value, tolerance. When we don't accept uncertainty, it becomes fear. When we accept it, it becomes adventure. When we don't accept others' bad behavior towards us, it becomes hatred. When we accept it, it becomes forgiveness. When we don't accept others' success, it becomes jealousy. When we accept it, it becomes inspiration. Acceptance is the key to handling life well. So our message, the prior slide, is acceptance means accepting who you are. And part of accepting who you are is rejecting who you are not. But we're busy trying to make our uncomfortable clothing feel comfortable. The identity that we've adopted. We're going to see a little video at the end of the next session that's just on this topic. So this is his concluding message. In Bhagavad Gita, acceptance is demonstrated by service in the mood of surrender. So we were discussing the mood of surrender a bit, and we'll be discussing it the mood of service. And there are obstacles in that mood of service, and we'll be hearing some more about it. Humility is being in our natural state. What's that? Acting from the spiritual platform, realizing that we are insignificant spirit souls who can make a difference when we embrace a mood of service. The soul connected to the Supreme Soul, in other words. That's who we are. It's not just soul. But connected to the Supreme Soul. It implies, if we're not belligerent, it becomes a natural thing to be engaged in service in a humble mood. From Bhagavad Gita, this section of chapter 13, humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. Just a little deviation from our topic, and that is narcissism. One of the presentations that I have made in colleges is about narcissism, because there are sociologists specific to millennials, and kids in college today are millennials. It's like it's an epidemic of narcissism, and this is one of them, fed by parents. There's details, but it's part of the culture of narcissism, which is the other end of the spectrum of humility. So one should not be anxious for that. Amanina manadena. Mother Teresa picture of humility. If you are humble, nothing will touch you, neither praise nor disgrace, because you know what you are. And again, it's not who you are, but what you are. And, both ends of that spectrum can have its challenges. Looking for appreciation, or praise, or recognition, or distinction, honor. It's according to Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, is one of the anarthas of the heart, is wanting to receive and becoming an enjoyer when you receive lava puja pratishta. So it's, supposing somebody really wants to cook a nice feast. So, and they get their team together and they cook a really nice feast, and people go, wow, cook such a nice feast. But they go, no. But, when you're truly humble, that's not going to touch you. You can be genuinely, we'll have some role play on this, right? Yeah. The role play on what is real humility and false humility. Arjuna. Humility aided Arjuna to understand himself and what he must do in the greater scheme of things. So he's powerful. I mean, gosh, who did Arjuna defeat? Everybody, even Lord Shiva. There was some challenge. So, who can be powerful like Arjuna? But he submitted himself in humility for the higher teachings of Krishna, because he knew that Krishna had the capacity to take away his bewildered state of mind. And then he could understand himself and the big picture of life. Without humility, that's not going to happen. Humility is not weakness. It nurtured Arjuna's self-esteem, self-confidence, and courage. This is, the address that some people think humility is the opposite. Bad. Don't show weakness. It's a question I hear all the time. In the work, the devotee community, okay, but in the workplace, you got to show, you got to puff your chest up, and don't get humble because you're going to get abused. It is the jewel of the broad-minded and the key to a spiritual life. This is, I believe, this language from the Oxford Project people. Repeatedly, the graphic design of this presentation shows a key and a lock, and the lock is in the shape of a heart, and it opens the heart. Another nice saying that has acceptance involved in: humility gives acceptance, acceptance gives courage, courage gives openness, openness gives access to higher teachings. So that's breaking the thing down from saying, with humility you can receive higher teachings, which is true. Without humility you can't receive higher teachings, which is true. But acceptance is accepting who you really are, and accepting who you really are gives you courage. You're not alone. You're connected to Krishna, and openness and higher teachings. And we're almost done. It's a shorter class this morning. Humility is not independent. It has a reference point. Our absolute reference point is Krishna. That's this alignment of our deepest held convictions, our values, our behaviors, and it's all meant to connect us with Krishna. How can we improve our ABCD? Association books, chanting, diet. ABCD. So now we're ready for some fun. Professor time is over and transformation time.
So,
I think you can listen.
doesn't matter which one.
Doesn't matter.
Do you want the projector removed?
Yeah, we'll turn that off. So we're going to have some fun, as Mara said. We have a couple of skits set up for today's application exercise, and they're going to illustrate basically the difference between humility, real humility, and false humility. So to begin with, I'd like to invite, there are 4 of you involved in this one: Brinda, Miranda, Janikai Prabhu, and Mother Shubra. And I think we will
Can you move that?
we had a request to use the microphones because our audio is not being captured by the videos. And maybe this time we can censor it like this. So there's this one, and there's another one.
You want another one? You want a
This is
third
a
one?
little shorter, so. So just a little preamble before we get into it. I'd like to invite everyone to observe in this skit, you know, where do we see false humility, where do we see real humility. It'll be very clear, so I'll give some feedback once we watch this. And those who can't see in the back are welcome. There's actually a lot of space here in the front, so you can move forward.
Mataji, the pakoras you made were awesome.
No, I am not worthy of this praise. I am so fallen and so ignorant. Please do not express this praise to me. You are so much more elevated than me. You cannot praise me.
Prabhuji, your kirtan was amazing.
Yeah, well, you know, Prabhupada said that people are really attracted to nice kirtan, so my spiritual master is really fortunate to have a disciple like me because some of the kirtans I had to tolerate, you know. Thank you for noticing. Please invite me next time.
Mataji, your class was very inspiring.
Thank you so much for your kind words. My only goal is to please my spiritual master and Krishna, and they have given me the strength and ability to do this service well.
Okay. All right. So pretty simple and straightforward. Can we have volunteers to explain what was each of the three, what was happening in each of these three exchanges? Anybody can explain.
The first one was no self-esteem, is it? I mean,
Louder?
no self-esteem or less self-esteem or something like that.
Yeah, he's saying there was
She was feeling worthless, or she was not feeling worthy of the praise.
Right, very good. She wasn't feeling worthy, and it was basically low self-esteem, which is, as we saw in our presentation, that is not the definition of humility. Quite opposed.
She is more outcome oriented, and both of them are me oriented. I am good or I am bad. I am me oriented. She's, I am outcome oriented.
Really
Class
nice.
has to be good. It is respect to
Yes.
I am good or not.
Really nice. Quite the opposite of humility, right?
Yeah.
They're about themselves.
Yes.
Just like, this is, I am not worthy.
Mm.
Or he's like, I am worthy.
Right.
The last one was the real humility. Right? Somebody else is raising their hand. Okay. Yes, please.
So those two are like more focused on taking credit and not taking credit. But like this Mataji was giving right credit to that person. Like,
Exactly.
giving credit to the spiritual master and
Very nice, right. The first two, they were both about either completely denying or rejecting the credit, or wholly like receiving the credit and making themselves the cause of the credit. But in the final situation, she very humbly redirected the credit to the source of her abilities. So thank you for bringing that out. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. What about the fourth option when the other person doesn't say anything and just stay calm because he has something goes in their mind right now?
You mean in the case that where there's no appreciation?
No, like appreciation, somebody appreciates you, but you don't know what to respond, and you're like, mom, and like, oh, okay, great, thanks. That's it. So what does that signify?
That's an interesting question. Well, one thing, and this is kind of connected to what we learned yesterday, is that even if somebody doesn't communicate something, it doesn't mean there's nothing going on internally, right? So internally, I guess nobody knows then. They could have been either one of these scenarios. That's what I can think.
I'd like to comment.
Yes.
You know, this is role play, and then there's real life, and somebody comes and offers a compliment about something. Isn't it bewildering how to respond when somebody offers a compliment? You know, there's the no, 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 no. And there's the yes, 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 yes. And there's the, you know, the praise transparently goes to somebody else. But do we really think like that? If we don't really think like that, then it's another kind of false humility. So then there's kind of this blankness. So what's the cause of that? Is, you know, we haven't really internalized who we really are and what our position is in the bigger picture of things. And so we don't know how to respond. That's my, and it's, I mean, anybody that's received some honor or distinction or some credit that happens, you know, do a little devotional service and somebody will criticize or praise. Something's going to happen. And what do you do when the criticism or the praise comes? If there isn't acceptance, there isn't that core spiritual character, as you say, just remain monk. Like, and then something's going on, like, you know, I don't know how to respond to this. So. In person, kind of.
Thank you for that question. All right, no last comments? If we're done with the comments, we're going to move on to the next one. We'll have another role play. So I believe in this one it will be Shubha Mata and Vedamata Praise. Oh, you're doing it? Okay.
I just need to.
So just explain to everyone before your video. Okay, so I'm a devotee one who is a subordinate and who is giving a feedback about a class that is provided. And I've approached a senior devotee for a suggestion of how to share my input. So I'm just giving a feedback about this class.
So you're giving feedback and Jenny's like...
And he's receiving and I'm a subordinate.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhu, I do see you as my superior in all regards. After hearing your Sunday feast class, I wanted to express some of my thoughts to you. My spiritual master encouraged me to openly share my heart with you, so I would like to express some things I felt after your class. I thought it was too philosophical. It would be better if your class on Sunday were a little bit more practical. You spoke very good, but there are a lot of new people in the class who might get lost in all the philosophical references that you made in the class.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I'm a very senior Vaishnava, and I've been giving classes for a very long time. And actually, I don't think it's appropriate for you to think that you can improve my lectures. Maybe you were lacking philosophically. Maybe you could take Bhakti Shastri. I took Bhakti Shastri, and so did maybe some of the new people, so they could follow along. And a lot of people were praising me. I think maybe you're the exception. You really have no right to tell me that I'm speaking too philosophically. You can't even quote Bhagavad Gita verses, let alone give a class. So don't speak to me like this again.
And then we'll see a counterpart of this exchange as well. You can step out and step back in if you need to.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhu, I do see you as my superior in every regard. After hearing your Sunday-based lecture, I wanted to express some of my thoughts to you. My spiritual master encouraged me to openly share my heart with you. So I would like to express some things I felt about your class. I thought it was too philosophical. It would be better if your classes, especially on Sunday, were a little bit more practical, taking into consideration that there are a lot of people in the audience there that are very new to philosophy and they might get lost in the scriptural references.
Thank you so much for giving me this feedback. I really appreciate that you're willing to openly come to me and speak like this. And I really appreciate it a lot. And I would like to improve my classes. And it's good that you're helping me see the perspective from the audience, because I'm not always able to pick up on that. And I really like to improve on that so that my classes are more accessible to everyone. Thank you so much for your feedback.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so based on what we've learned about humility around the idea of acceptance and respect and service, so can anybody highlight the two exchanges that we saw and what was going on in each one? Yes, Miranda?
It seemed like in the first one, she was trying to like open herself and let him know like where she was coming from, and then he was more like on the defense and not being open himself and not being receptive, which therefore cuts the reciprocation.
Mm-hmm. Really nice. Yes, that was a really nice description of what was happening in the communication. Thank you. Anybody else?
So, like, whatever she was doing, that takes like a lot of courage, I feel like, it's not that easy to give feedback to anybody.
Right.
So, that was like kind of a service mode, I think, a great service mode. So, so that's what I took, like, the last part, like who we are, so like, she was seeing like herself as a service, in that service mode.
Very nice. Thank you for bringing that out. You mentioned two things, courage and service. And one of the slides we learned that humility leads to courage. So thank you for highlighting that. And she was clearly acknowledging herself as a spirit soul, and him as a spirit soul as well. And she wanted to serve him in that way. It was very clear how she said, I asked my spiritual master before coming to you, and my spiritual master gave me permission to give you this feedback. So it's nice. Thank you for. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
The criticism was constructive criticism. In the first case, he was more focused on giving what he has. Like in the first case, he wants to give the philosophy that what he has learned. In the second case, when he accepted it, then he is concerned about how to bring Krishna to others. Means he is concerned about we have to go onto the level of the audience to give the message nicely. So, it's good.
Right. Yes, thank you very much. Any other reflections or your comments?
One thing I noticed is that when she said to him, your class is not good, when we are not in that mood, we take it, oh, my class is not good, so I'm not good. Right? And we break that link. Well, the class is not good, so I'm what I am, improve, right? It's more flexible stand than a very rigid stand up.
Really nice point you brought up, right? Yeah, we identify ourselves with our activity as opposed to like our in the spirit soul, like recognizing who we really are.
Just feeding on that, the concept of self-worth is a sign of humility, because it's based on spiritual conception, and I wish to be in service, and if I can improve my service, fantastic. It's not, you know, there's an intrinsic self-worth. And then one can be humble. If there isn't an intrinsic self-worth, if that's just like absent, you get defensive, like an animal, protecting myself. You showing teeth and claws, get away. Mature life. True humility is a great asset. Getting there is just a journey.
Any final feedback, or reflections, comments, any experiences you had in watching these exchanges?
Just one comment, I guess. Usually always the mood in which the other person is coming triggers something in us, right? And I was just thinking that the way she expressed to him may have triggered something and he came out in a certain way. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's both of them, the mood in both of them giving and receiving the advice has to...
Well, I have a question about your comment, because she said the same.
That's what I wasn't sure if you expressed in the same way.
Exactly the same,
Same.
words,
Verbatim,
everything same.
same tone, same body language, everything the same.
Okay.
So I'm trying to understand your statement.
I was just wondering that usually in two people coming together, it is how the one person comes on to the other person has the dynamic changes.
So now, having said that, how do you take that model and apply it to what we just observed?
I'm not sure.
Sure.
It's just...
I'm not sure either. It's, from her side, the first response compared to the second response, from what we discussed yesterday, there's a need.
Yes.
That he has, or the receiver of this, communication has, and that need isn't being met, his need is being challenged, and so the real problem isn't necessarily how I expressed what I expressed, although we can certainly look at how we express what we express to others, the nonviolent communication type thing. But if there's that kind of response, I don't have to, going back to something that Leela Smarta said, I don't have to feel, oh, I'm bad, because now they responded this way. That's another false humility. It's denying one's own self-worth. We certainly need to monitor how we say what we say and how we do what we do and so forth. And that's oriented towards pleasing Krishna. If I can get some help to please Krishna better, that's great. So, then comes shut down, like this other, somebody offers praise, you shut down. Somebody offers, they get triggered by something because of a need that's not met, so you just shut down. Go into a shell and, like we said yesterday, go into your space and just chant on your own. I don't want these conflict situations. Or another one, I expected, he's a senior person, and he's not behaving like a senior person. And then we start falling involved. There's so many options besides the option of real humility. And then all these nice Gita qualities. How they play out when the genuine thing is there is fantastic. And when the genuine thing isn't there, we find conflicts. Because the genuine thing is not always there, or partially.
I was thinking about
Yeah.
like what it's like coming from like the position that Mother Subra was taking, where like she previously even discussed it with her spiritual master, which means she had some consideration about how the person may respond.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that being in that situation, or the kind of strength someone would require to be in that kind of situation, to really have the humility to proceed in such a way. And especially when the response you get may be the negative response, and perceiving that as a kind of failure because the person responded perhaps in a way that wasn't positive. Right. And so I was thinking, when I was reflecting on it, it's not a failure if the person doesn't respond positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually something happened there.
Well, it's another opportunity for service. It's not like, gee, my spiritual master gave me the wrong advice. It's his fault. I knew I shouldn't do it. It's an opportunity for service. If one is genuinely humble, this and that, walking down the path of my life today, everything is an opportunity for service. So that Krishna connection isn't ever taken from you unless you withdraw it. You have to be discerning. What's the next way to serve this person that's become angry? And that's not always one thing. It can be time, place, circumstance. But, how to serve. We have some hand up over here. You're hiding behind the pillars. Our facilitator can't see you, but I can see you. Question for who? For me.
So is it advisable, like a junior, like giving suggestions or being critical on the senior devotees class?
Depends. Depends. There's variables. I think it's appropriate. No, that's me. I feel our senior devotees have to model, I'm ready for feedback. Have you ever attended any of Peter Purvash's seminars? You know who he is? A leadership kind of guy. So one of his qualities of a leader is on this point, feedback. And his statement is, feedback is the breakfast of champions. It's a commercial, for people that don't know about Wheaties. But they thrive on it. Or let's say the same thing in another way. Same thing. From Good to Great, this is a secular book. A sociologist studied Fortune 500 companies over a period of 10 years, and which ones went from good to great. And the ones went to great is where the leader was humble. They could take feedback. They were eager for feedback. So now, your question is it appropriate? No. It takes some discrimination to say, maybe it's not a good idea to give feedback to such and such Prabhu or Maharaj. But sometimes I ask regularly, because, am I being able to connect with the audience? That's what a good speaker wants to do, and if I get some feedback to help me connect with the audience. The feedback needs to come in the right mood. I receive feedback, I really appreciate the feedback, and I don't appreciate the mood. I appreciate the feedback. So, with some pause, with one person who gave some really valuable feedback, so, a few days later I said, I really appreciated the feedback. Here's something in the future you can do when you're offering feedback to me or to anybody. It's appropriate. It's a healthy culture. Should a child say to mother and father something with respect, please.
Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
When we see a perfect scenario, if we ask for feedback and out of humility and out of hesitation, if nobody gives any feedback, how can he give?
Well, it depends on this. Somebody may be fearful. Somebody may be in in their space. I can't because I'm not worthy. If I say something, it'll be misunderstood or whatever it is. So they can't. Hit them. So you invest in the relationship in some other way. Some people, everybody's different. I've asked for feedback from different devotees at different times, and it's not, cosmetic. And they're like, wow, nobody has ever asked me this kind of question. It took me about a week to process how to respond. But yes, I do have some feedback. It's part of leadership. So, if they don't, then what do you do? Invest in a relationship in a different way. Serve them in a different way. Engage in an exchange of service together in a different way.
Another question.
Go ahead, take it.
Maharaj, just clarifying the understanding that when I'm connected to the source or Guru or Krishna, so the my receivers would be more reciprocative than if I'm connected the other way.
Yes.
If I'm not, is that
Yes,
the understanding?
correct. You're just asking for clarification
Yes.
or verification?
Yes.
Yes.
So if I'm not connected, then I won't be like, the first reaction would be more of that. Or
Yeah.
is that-
Yeah. That by design, this little interaction was, she consulted her spiritual master before. So that, not only their self-worth, but she's acting under authority. Spiritual authority. Now it's her responsibility, acting under spiritual authority, to do so respectfully, which she did. But she's authorized. So whatever the response is, she doesn't crumble.
No, I was talking from the other side, like when I'm receiving that thing, if I am not connected.
The same principle.
Okay.
For the good response, he's connected and he wants to improve. We don't want to improve. We're stuck. If we want to improve, we want, to be introspective, but also interpersonal. We want some autonomy and we want some interpersonal connections.
So is that also that he needs some courage to,
Yeah,
from his point of view?
It's right in there.
Yeah.
Courage.
Yeah.
Courage. Okay. Last.
Actually, the wire is too short. Okay, fine.
Thank you, Shankar. So this is about the person who was giving the feedback.
The person who did what?
Who was giving the feedback. So
Was giving the feedback.
yeah, so in this particular script, it felt like, so this person was doing genuinely from a place of humility.
Yes.
Of
service.
Of service.
Yeah.
Yes. But then when I was just introspecting in the way that happens in reality for me in my situation, even though I approached the spiritual master and spiritual master gave me a directive of this is how you can approach the situation. And the first step was the courage to go and give the feedback. But then if the response was the first response of the person, which was more like attacking and denial, then what happened to me in that situation? In the sense that, so that means then for me to introspect that, did I really follow the instruction because I took it, or was it just that I took the first step but then I wasn't myself grounded in the humility?
This is a Schubert question. It's the realignment and redirecting and setting the course because the wind's just moving way over here and way over there, and now I've got my compass out and I just got to recalibrate everything again. It does not mean of necessity I wasn't acting in the mood of service. It could be, but that doesn't necessarily mean I wasn't. It can mean, like this other message, there's a need inside this person that's unmet. And now let me consider how to respond to what that unmet need is, but I don't even know what it is. But I need to know what it is in order to properly respond. But as we were discussing, how I take, the anger of this person, or the harsh response, is going to help determine, will that stage come somewhere down the road of life together with this person that they'll be able to address that need, because I'm not responsible to meet that need. But if I can be of service to that need, that's great. But I don't have to get into this shutdown mode because it was a harsh response. Smile. And think, how can it be of service? And you don't have the answer, that's okay. Think, how can it be of service? There's obviously, whatever you want to fill in the sentence. There's an unmet need, or there's some hurt inside this person, and he's being, harsh because of that. So let me remain in the position of the servant and well-wisher of this soul. There was a discussion not so long ago, when there's somebody in an authority position and there's some conduct that's not appropriate for a person in an authority position. The question specifically was, how do I not lose respect? Or how do I sustain respect? Well, from the question that you're raising is, the reactive mode from my side is I shut down. I don't even go there. Respect, not respect, I just shut down. But if you don't shut down, if the mood of service sustains, then how do I maintain respect for the person who just was really harsh when I was in the mood of service, genuinely? So, I thought some more about that question the other day. So I'm sharing it now. It's not specifically on the topic of your question, but it's related tangentially. Here's a soul. This is how to stay in the mood of service. here's a soul that's part of Krishna, worthy of respect. An ant is worthy of respect. This is soul worthy of respect. And of all souls, that in the human form of life, there's some devotion to Krishna inside. It's a mix, okay? But that's very special, and I honor that. I respect the soul, and the bhakti, however mixed the soul is. And so I can stay in the mood of service. Now, the specific, the question this other person was asking was, how do I maintain respect? Well, something that I shared in that discussion was, like many persons in our life, not only in the Hare Krishna movement, but in our life, there's a need for some taking up some service, maybe a mix in the motivation, but there they are, they step forward and are taking up that service and are not fully qualified. With a mix of emotion. They just, a mix of motivation. They're filling a need, and they weren't trained. How many times have we taken up services that we're not trained in? I mean, I can hardly think of any service I've taken up. A to Z. I can't hardly think of anything. Maybe a little bit of something with deity worship, but it wasn't really much. So, did I make mistakes? You bet. No, and without going on to the how can I maintain respect? Well, invest in the relationship in such a way that I can understand the need of the person, earn the trust of the person, try to assist the need of that person without, trying again to get feedback about their class, and have them feel supported and cared for, and all those things we did the first time. Here's another person that's just like me. And so I let me invest in that way. Like, when people, you ask for feedback and people don't give it, let me find another way to be of service to that person. And when there's sufficient trust in the relationship, then I'll understand more about the person's need, and I can be of service to their need, even without their saying, remember when I responded harshly? Here's what was going on. They may not even know. And I may not be the one to, find out and inform them or share with them. But it doesn't change the mood of service. So it doesn't change my position of respect. Let me serve this Prabhu. Now, I may, naturally so, make stronger alliances or connections with persons that they're more clear, and there's less stuff going on that gets triggered when they get, a humble feedback from somebody. I want to align myself and work more closely with those people, but I don't lose the core respect, the dignity of the soul engaged in service. Like Prabhupada said, yes, my disciples, this is to some lady, my disciples are less than perfect, but consider them like a person who knows that they're not clean, they're standing in the shower to become clean, don't fault them for becoming not clean, for the condition of not yet being clean. Now, that's a nice answer. Some people are not even aware that they're not clean. Some people feel perfectly justified because of their position. That's a problem. My experience is Krishna takes care of that. I don't have to take care of that. they have a relationship with Krishna, and I honor that relationship they have with Krishna. They're in Krishna's care. He's very kind, and he'll help them. He may bang him on the side of the head, or he may do whatever he wants to do. But that's between them and Krishna. I don't have to lose my respect because they have that relationship with Krishna. And the bhakti process is purifying. So it's already 9:30. We're going to end so we can have breakfast and get together again. Srila Prabhupada, please.
Jai.
Yeah.